So business builders, it's great to spend time with you in this month's virtual campfire. And I'm excited that we're joined by April Crossley. April is the founder of Lazy Girl Real Estate Investments, and her tagline, or one of her taglines, is from teenage mom to millionaire. And I also like to, because of my farming roots, I really appreciate that April has miniature cows as well. And so she not only does real estate investment, but then also has built a whole network of other people involved with real estate investment and the various aspects of it, and teaches and runs mastermind events. And I know she has a big one of those that'll be coming up next spring. And I got a chance to spend time with April at the farm. A couple of friends introduced us and said, you all really ought to get to know each other. And that was great. And I got to hear about some of your dreams, April, that which really are about benefiting other people, such as seniors and people that have left prison, et cetera. So you also just have a great set of values. And I'm glad that you're joining us today. April's just going to share a little bit, and then, as we do, we're sitting around the campfire, right? I should turn on my campfire background. We'll do some Q&A. I think some of you got a chance to take a look at her site and some of her social media, so that'll breed questions, I'm sure. So April, I'm just going to be quiet and go on mute, and thanks a lot for joining us today. And thank you all for being here, because it always makes it more real when we have some people asking questions. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you guys for coming. And I'm not going to do like a formal presentation. I sent some presentation links to Wayne to send out that are like videos I made that about what we do. And it's not like public on our YouTube channel, but you can look at them if you click on the link. So if you have questions from that or questions about anything I talk about today, I'm happy to answer it. I'll just give you a brief kind of overview of where I came from and what I'm doing now, and then would love to know how I can help you and what questions I can answer. I started in real estate back in 2004. So I've been doing it quite a long time, but my degree is in biology from Millersville University in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I worked in a hospital in trauma intensive care with people in life support machines for 13 years. And then when I was 35, I quote unquote retired from that. So Dawn kind of went through what you're going through now when you're transitioning. I was like building my real estate business as a side gig. And then I started making more money in that than I was making in my full-time job. So then I left my full-time job and was just like, I'm going all in on real estate full-time and leaving healthcare. Healthcare was just kind of like going in a bad direction. It was more about business and less about taking care of people, which I didn't like. So back when I started in 2004, I was not financially educated at all. I had my son when I was 16 years old, and then went back to high school, finished high school, went to college, worked part-time when I was in college, was supporting my son, and just wanted to get a good job in healthcare so I could like get off welfare. That was my primary goal. So then once I got my great job in healthcare, I met my now husband, who had 2 small rental properties. And he had this book on vacation that talked all about how people buy houses and then they put someone else in them, and that person pays off their house for them. And then they sell the house and they get to keep all that money from the house. And they also get to make money like every month when the person like pays them rent. And when I literally picked up this book because I was bored on vacation. We were like in Cancun or something. And I'm like the type of person that's always learning and moving and doing things. And I pick up this book and I'm like, this book has to be like full of it. Why would someone pay off someone else's house for them? And he's now my husband, but my then just guy I was dating looks at me and was like, this is exactly what you're doing. Like, you work in healthcare, you make great money at your job, and you're paying off your landlord's house. Because I was renting a house at the time. It didn't even like dawn on me that I was that person that was like making this other person all this equity in their home. And I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, you should buy a house. I'm like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you buy a house? I didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. I would just go to the ATM machine every day that I needed to pay for something, and I would stick my card in so I could get a receipt and see what my balance was. And if I had enough money in my account, then I went and purchased what I needed to go purchase. That was my level of like financial education when I was in my early 20s. So bought our first house and lived there. And while we were doing that, I was like, I got to learn more about this real estate thing. So I started taking some courses and paying for coaching, and flipped my first house in 2004. And when you come from a background where you're like on welfare and you're a very young mom and you have a ton of college debt, I had to pay for college all by myself. When you find a house and renovate it and work on it for a few months and then you sell it and you make $20,000, you're like, what? $20,000. I was like, this is a ton of money. That was the most money I've ever seen. So when we bought this house, I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So someone brought us the house, someone that brought us the deal, basically. They're called wholesalers. So he brought us this house and was like, hey, I have this house. I think it's a great deal, but I don't have any money. So do you want to buy it? And I was like, yes. So I take it to my husband. I'm like, I have this great house. I think it's a deal. We should buy it. My husband's like, we don't have any money. I'm like, I know, but I think we should buy it. Let's buy it. So like trying to like skirt around the money problem. I'm just really naive and clueless at this point. So my husband takes the house to someone that's flipping in our area and is like, hey, I think we have this great deal. And the guy was generous enough to say like, it's a great deal. Let's flip it together. You got to put in sweat equity. So we had to like rip out carpet, paint, clean up the disgusting basement, like all this stuff. And then we'll split the profit at the end. So at the end, we made 20 grand, he made 20 grand. And then someone else got paid on the HUD, which is like the closing document. And that person was a private money lender. So meaning the guy that partnered with us, it wasn't his money that he was using either. So we didn't have money, he didn't have money, but he had a private money lender. So fast forward, I'm like, who is that? What does that even mean? So basically it's an everyday person like me, you, that have money that they want to invest, but they don't have time to go out and look for deals. They don't want to work with contractors. They don't want to renovate deals, stuff like that. So basically they're just the money behind the deal. So this guy that was the money came to us afterwards and was like, hey, if you find more deals like this deal is great, come to me. I want to give you more money to do more deals. And this is how much money I have. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's got this much money. With that much money, I can do 3 houses a year. Okay. I wasn't like thinking big enough to think, oh, if I found more people like him, I could like scale and do more. I just wasn't, my thinking was not that big. I couldn't even like balance a checkbook. So this is like all new to me and I'm just like learning. So he ended up giving us his money that he had to buy more deals. And we were just flipping like 3 deals a year. So from flipping, just buying houses, renovating them and reselling 3 a year, I was making more doing that than I was working in healthcare at my job. Okay. When I left my job, I didn't realize that I was like trading a job for another job. Does that make sense? Like everyone has this dream, you guys know, you're business owners, of being self-employed. I'm going to be a business owner. It's going to be amazing. And I don't gotta, nobody's going to tell me when to take vacation. So I left my job, started flipping houses, and I basically had a full-time job flipping houses. We then started like buying rental properties. So I don't know if you guys follow the real estate cycle at all, but my husband at the time was a real estate agent. So we're following the cycle. And in like 2006, he was like, we're not buying right now. Like things are just crazy. And I'm like, I remember being so agitated, like we should just buy, we should just buy. But again, I wasn't educated enough like he was, and I'm still learning. And so I had a really intense job at the time. So from 2006 to like 2008, we didn't really buy anything. And if y'all know what happened in 2008, that's kind of when the bubble burst. So my husband was like, we're not buying, not buying, not buying, not buying. Let's just focus on our careers. And then in 2008, we went gangbusters. Like I'm still learning this whole time from like 2004 to 2008. I'm trying to meet with more private money lenders. We're just like getting a handle on our rental properties. And then in 2008, we just started flipping and buying rentals like crazy. 2008 to 2012, I would say, is when we grew the majority of our wealth. So in 2013, I left my job. And then I ended up in a position where I was flipping houses and running rental properties full-time as a landlord. And then I wanted to quit real estate because I was like, this is horrible. Like, this is not financial freedom at all. Like, everyone talks about financial freedom and they think that's when you like leave a job and have self-employment, and it's not by any means. I was like, this life is worse than when I worked in healthcare because my job never leaves me. Like, I'm constantly getting called, I'm constantly doing things, I'm working 80 hours a week. So a friend of mine was like, you don't need to quit. You just need to do it differently. You're doing it wrong. Like, you need more systems, you need a business partner, you need a coach that can help you scale, you need blah, blah, blah. So in my misery, and I couldn't go back to healthcare. I gave up my healthcare license. Like, when I retired, I got rid of everything. And you can't just get a healthcare license back like that. It's not that easy. So I hired a coach and hired a business partner because I went to my first mastermind meeting ever in my life. And my coach was like, you had to stand up and say everything about your business. And I'm a pretty forward, blunt person. So I was like, stood up in front of a room of 60 people I didn't know and was like, I hate my life. I hate this business. It's horrible. This was supposed to be freedom. It's not freedom at all. I'm in the worst misery ever. And then they asked me all the things I was doing in my business. And then they were like, how are you doing this? Like, by yourself? You need a business partner. So I brought on a business partner. So I had to learn a lot about like partnering with other people. So flash forward, now we have a lot more systems in place, which I learned are super important in your business. Technology, super important. Having the right business partner, super important. So hired a business partner, put more systems in place. My husband and I were able to sell our house and go travel around the United States in our RV for like a year and a half. So we lived, I'm from Pennsylvania, but we lived mostly out west for like over a year and still had all of our real estate back east. So we are able, and we self-manage all of our units. We were self-managing from a distance. We were flipping houses from a distance. We're running our businesses from a distance. We bought a mobile home park while we were on the road with a partner that I knew in the state of Tennessee. So I own a mobile home park down there. And then I really wanted to buy like a project that had impact on a community. And it's a long story, I won't get into it, but I took care of my grandmother for a long time. And just in the senior space, there's not a lot of affordable housing. So I ended up buying shared houses in Tennessee, and we thought they would be used for senior housing. But we ended up renting them to a nonprofit. The senior community that we went to was like, this isn't a good fit for us. It's not going to work. And like, I thought my heart was going to shatter into pieces because that's the reason we bought the project. But then we ended up renting it to a nonprofit that helps men that are coming out of prison. So our houses in Tennessee house 96 men. They're not halfway houses. They're houses where the men come out of prison. They're put into a Christian program where they're given a bunch of life skills and taught like basically how to like reacclimate into the community. And so the Department of Corrections pays their rent because the Department of Corrections doesn't want these men going to halfway houses because they just end up back in prison. So their recidivism rate was really high. So they now want these men to come to like these houses where this nonprofit works with them. So that's what we're doing in Tennessee. So after I bought those shared houses, now I was like, I don't know how I can buy just another building just to buy a building. So I've spent this year pretty much just learning about like development and how to like redevelop buildings into something that can be used for more purpose for a community. So amidst all this, like we own a whole bunch of multifamily. I still have a wholesaling and flip company. We still do that. I have an education company. We own the mobile home park. We own shared housing, and we do a lot of private lending right now. I'm a huge proponent of private lending. When I started raising private money, I read a book called Getting the Money. The author, Susan Lassiter-Lyons. It's a great book about raising capital. There's been a lot of books written, but she does a fantastic job explaining it on a basic level. So I read the book, Getting the Money, and I literally went on this mission to raise more money because I'm like, okay, if I have one private lender, now my thinking's bigger, and he has $260,000 and I can do 3 flips a year. If I can get more private lenders, then I can do more flips or buy more rental properties. whatever the case may be. So in the 20 years now, I think it's been that we've been doing real estate, I've never purchased a property with any of my own money except once. So I use other people's money. I don't use my own money. And now I take my money and I lend it out to other people to buy real estate and they pay me a return. And the reason I do that is because if you have the choice to, there's lots of things you can do in real estate. You can wholesale houses, flip houses, own rental property, like apartment buildings and multifamily units or mobile home parks or whatever, shared housing, or you can be the money, okay? In my mind, the greatest thing you can do, and when I coach, I tell my students, I want you to be the biggest private money lender you can be. I want you to be the person with the money, lending out the money. You can't really have one without the other. So it's not, as a private money lender, I'm super grateful for the people that borrow from me. And as someone who borrows private money to buy stuff, I'm grateful for private lenders. So you work like as a team. But in the grand scheme of things and everything that I do, private money lending is my favorite, okay? Because it is the easiest. I look at deals and vet the deal. I vet the partner. I write a check or I wire money to a title company and I get paid a return on my money. So in one of the presentations I sent out and linked for Wayne, there's like a circle and it shows you that like you work really hard and you make really good money, okay? And then you stick your money in the bank and the bank pays you less than 0.5% or maybe 2% or something. And then the bank takes your money and the bank lends your money to someone else at 7%. So in my world, I'm like, why don't you just cut out the middleman, which is what we do. So we just cut out the bank. We don't like banks. We don't like working with banks. So pretty much instead of taking my money and sticking in a bank, I take my money and I give it to people that buy real estate and they pay me a return. Way more than what a bank pays me. So short term, I can make anywhere from 10 to 16%. Short term's like 6 months to a year. Long term, I do some long-term loans and a lot of my borrowers pay me 7, 8, 9%. It really depends on the project, is the interest rate that they're paying me long term. So someone can come to me and say, hey, I'm buying this house. Can you give me a loan on it? And I say someone, I mean an investor. It has to be an investment property. We don't lend to homeowners. And if they're buying that investment property, instead of going to the bank and getting $100,000 mortgage, they come to me and I give them $100,000 mortgage. So they're helping me grow wealth and I'm helping them grow wealth. They're paying me a return instead of paying a bank. And I'm helping them get a rental property that they're going to build equity in and get cash flow off of. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So when I first found out about private money lending, I was sitting in a coffee meeting with another private money lender trying to raise capital from him and seeing if he would be interested in doing private money lending. And he was like, what do you do? What are you invested in? I'm like, well, I buy real estate. He's like, yeah, but where's all your old retirement accounts from when you worked at the hospital? Because I worked at a bunch of different hospitals and I was like, I don't know. What happens to old retirement accounts when you leave your job? And he's like, well, where are they? I'm like, I don't know. Where do they go? Like, okay, so I'm not financially educated. I'm trying to learn. I left my job. I'm like, I don't know where my retirement account is. He's like, you should take your retirement accounts and roll them over into what's called the self-directed IRA. And then you can lend money out of your self-directed IRA, tax-free or tax-deferred, just like any 401k or other IRA. And I was like, well, I have a Roth IRA. Can I do that? He's like, yeah, you should roll your Roth IRA over into a self-directed IRA. So I lean over the table and I'm like, is this even legal? Is this illegal? And he's like, no, it's legal. People do it all the time. It's a way to like grow your wealth faster. So just to give you an example, my sister has, like, if you have like a Roth IRA or a 401k that's old, it can't be one with like a current employer. You can't roll that over, but like an old employer. My sister had one and she could contribute like whatever, when you're making active income, I don't know what the limit is now because I haven't had one for so long, but it's like 6,000 or 6,500 a year or something into your 401k. So she rolled over her old one to self-directed IRA. And because she's investing it passively, meaning she loans that out to other investors, there's no limit on how much money can go back into it. okay? Because it's not active earned income. She's just investing it passively. So she makes way more. So we're growing her retirement account way faster. So we do a lot of private lending from our retirement accounts to grow our retirement accounts by rolling them over into this self-directed IRA. I'm going to take a breath and just, are there any questions at all?
I have a couple questions if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, fire away.
Do you always, in regards to taxes, so say you lend money to, like the flip, let's just say the flip, you lend money and you take a percentage of the sale, and those proceeds, can you reinvest within 60 days without getting hit with the taxes?
Not on
Does that make
short,
sense?
yeah, not on short term. So that's the other bugger about flipping houses, is you're going to get hit with short-term capital gains tax.
Sure.
So, I mean, I tell people, like, if you are trying to decide, do I want to wholesale flip houses, own rentals, or be a private lender? Make sure whatever avenue you choose is good for like what you do. So sometimes
Sure.
people, their primary goal is, I need tax deductions. And well, if you need tax deductions, then you should not be flipping houses. Like, you
Right.
should be a passive investor into what we call syndication projects, because when you invest into syndication projects, and I can send you a presentation on that as well, you can get tax deductions by doing that. If you want to flip houses, like we still flip houses, we just factor all that in up front. So this is how much profit we want to make. And then we know, like, this is how much we're going to have to pay in tax on that profit, because it's pretty hefty.
And you said, it sounds like you usually take the route of charging an interest rate versus a percentage. So if you did let your money, if you did lend someone money, whether they flip it, whether they build it up for rental, it doesn't really matter. Is that the route you normally take, is an interest?
Yeah.
Or is
So
it percentage?
I'll usually charge them, like on a flip project. Say I lend them $100,000 at 10% for 6 months. They're going to pay me $833 a month in interest. That's how we do it. And then you can charge points up front. So some people will charge points just like a mortgage company does. So like 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. So some people charge points up front to reimburse themselves for their time, like the time they took to look at the deal, the time to vet the borrower, because it takes time. I work with a lot of borrowers that I know, they're like repeat borrowers, so I'm comfortable with them. But when you work with a new borrower, it's like, it's nice, but it's also kind of a pain, because you have to do credit check, background check. Like, I'm going to do everything a bank does to make sure that this is a sound borrower. So I'm kind of like reimbursing myself for my time by charging points. And then self-directed IRA accounts, they will charge you like an account maintenance fee, self-directed IRA companies. And I always have my borrowers pay that, always. So like anytime I do a loan for my self-directed IRA, I put in the note, which lays out the terms of the loan, something saying that the borrower will reimburse me a one-time charge of $500. And that goes back to my self-directed IRA account. And that's my way of just getting my self-directed IRA fees covered so that I don't have to pay them. So my account's free for me to have. Does that make sense? What other questions did you have?
I have a question. I have a
No,
question.
sorry.
Oh, sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll make this one quick. So when you're looking at an investor, I know you're doing like credit checks and things like that. Do you look at like the cap rate or like the net operating income of like, do they provide you all of that kind of upfront to give you an idea of like?
Yeah, because your money is going to be secured by the asset, so by the building. So
Yeah.
my money, I don't want to lend my money on something I don't want to own. So they'll send me the numbers on that building. They'll send me the numbers on the flip project, and I'm analyzing those numbers. I tell people, if you're a new private money lender, like if you're new to private money lending, don't do your first, second, or even third loan without running it by another private money lender. And I say that because borrowers can kind of make a package look like whatever they want it to look like. They'll kind of like be like, oh, here's the comps. This is how I know the house is going to be worth this. But people who have been doing private lending a long time, we have a lot of experience. We know how to like dig deep and do our own due diligence,
Right.
so that we can kind of pull out the things that don't make sense. So I always tell people, like, reach out to someone like me or reach out to someone you know that's already doing private lending. and have them look at both your borrower and the deal to make sure that the numbers make sense.
Okay.
Because borrowers, especially new borrowers, tend to get really excited and then they fall in love with the deal and they're like, I just want it so bad. So they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And then you're like, I'm sorry to break your heart, but this is not a deal. Like, don't buy this thing. And I've told borrowers that, and they've still gone and bought it with another private lender, and it usually doesn't work out. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's because I wonder, because I'm in a local like Facebook group of investors, and everyone's always saying, hey, looking for a private money investor. And I'm like, I have a little chunk of cash and I'm like, should I just do it? Should I just try? But I don't know what to vet. I don't know what to
Oh, yeah.
the
If
operating
you,
income and cap rates might be one thing I could think of.
yeah, if
know?
you email me, I can send you like a checklist of stuff that you should ask for and look for from a borrower. And
Okay.
then you're more than welcome to email me, and like, if they send you it, the best thing to do is be like, hey, next time you have a deal, send it to me. And then you send it to me and I can go over it and be like, hey, yeah, this guy knows what they're doing. Here's the questions to ask, or no way, this guy like has no idea what they're doing and this deal super sucks, don't do it. But it's important to ask your borrower, like, what experience do they have? How many deals have they done is really important. And then do they have other private lenders that they can give you as references? Because in the private lending world, a lot of times, like sometimes I'm a private lender, there's what we call hard money lenders who have like funds and way deeper pockets than what I have. So if someone comes to me and I'm all out of money, I connect them with another private lender I know. Like I'll be like, hey, this borrower is great. I've worked with them before. I've done multiple deals with them. I'm just out of money. They're looking for another private lender. But yeah, you definitely want to like run that deal by someone with experience. Yeah,
Okay.
doing lending. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
April, my question was, at one point when you were sharing that you and your husband were traveling and you said you were doing things remotely and you were doing
Mhm.
things. Can you tell me what you meant by that? Like flipping houses remotely?
Yeah, so it was a painful process to learn. I'm kind of the type of person that jumps and I build my parachute on the way down, that I'd love to say, oh, I overthink and I put all the systems into place first, but I don't. So we were snowbirding for 3 years. So for 3 years, we would leave Pennsylvania for 3 months and go live in Arizona and try to run our businesses remotely, while it felt like we were getting punched every day because it was super painful because we didn't have systems set up. So then every year we'd come back and be like, we need to put this system in place, or we need to hire this person. So I tell people, if you want to run your business remotely, leave your business, like leave. And that makes people really uncomfortable because they don't like to jump and build their parachute on the way down. But you have to just like leave your business and see what falls apart. And then you're going to see like what systems you don't have in place and what people you need to put in place. So for example, with the flip business, we'd leave and I'd be like, we cannot manage this all remotely. We're getting too many phone calls. We need a project manager. How do I hire a project manager? Where do I find a project manager? I was blessed enough to have contractors that were pretty much regular contractors. So I was using the same usual guys. And then as far as like signing loan documents and stuff, it was just a matter of getting a title company that was like, I need you to overnight documents to Arizona, and then I will overnight you documents back, or someone that could do like e-signing. So slowly we kind of put all those things in place while we were snowbirding each year, and then felt like, okay, let's sell our house and just go, and then left for a while. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So when I'm very different than some people that flip houses. Like some people love it. They love the house. They love design. They want to see it. They want to walk through Lowe's. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not like that. I'm very black and white. These are the numbers. This project works or it doesn't. Most of the houses I flip and wholesale, I've never seen them. I wouldn't know them if I drove past them. You won't catch me dead in Lowe's or Home Depot. I know nothing about that stuff. I'm very much about like partnering with the people that have those strengths and doing deals with them and building a team so that I can just look at the black and white numbers and make money and not have to like pick paint, flooring. I don't know anything about any of that stuff, to be honest with you. My contractors do all that. Other people do all that because I'm terrible at it. So I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm terrible at. And I hire people for what I'm terrible at. I don't want to be good at it. Too many people spend too much time trying to be good at everything, or like, I need to improve so I can get better at this. I'm like, no, I suck at it. Who's good at it? Let's bring them in. I don't want to become good at it. Yeah. That's just my theory.
April.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. I want you to go.
Oh, thank you. Hi, April. First of all, I've been watching your videos for many years. Love your content.
cool.
So super
Thanks.
excited to be on the call here. So plus my dad's side of the family is from near Lancaster, Coatesville area, which I think
Okay.
is close to
Yeah.
you or so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have 13 properties, 17 doors,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it kind of on the side. I own a marketing agency for my day job, I call it. What's your thought on like grow as big and bad as you can versus kind of that Chad Carson small and mighty investor? Like, where are you? Where do you recommend people? Like, is there a sweet spot in doors, units, cash flow, something like that? Like,
Nope, no sweet spot. So it all comes down to you and your lifestyle. And you have to build a business that supports the lifestyle that you want. So for me, I know people that own 10 single family homes that are making more money per month because they bought 10 really good deals that are now paid off, that make more money per month than some guys I know that own 150 units, but they're just buying, just say they can own 150 units, but the deals are making slim cash flow. They're not purchasing, knock it out of the park, really good deals. And they're making less than the guy I know that owns 10 doors. And then you have people that need to own 150, 250, 600 plus units because of the lifestyle that they want. So I'm not all about like, you need to own 150 doors or 300 doors. I also know private lenders that might own 5 doors and they really love their job and what they do. The goal is not to quit their job. I don't think the goal should be to quit your job if you love your job. They love their job. And then they make more private money lending than the guy that owns 150 units.
nice. Yeah.
So it's kind of like finding like what works for you. And like for me, all year, people are like, what have you bought? What are you buying? And the last thing I bought was my shared housing last year. And I'm like, I'm not buying anything this year. I'm just learning. And they're like, but you could buy this and you could buy that. And deals come my way. And I'm like, ugh, ugh, ugh. Like they just don't interest me. I'm like, I want to do something with purpose. I want to do a project that has purpose or where I'm learning and where I'm stretching my brain and I'm growing. I don't want to just buy another 6 unit with tenants in it. It doesn't light my world on fire and I'm just going to be miserable. Will it make me money? Sure. But it doesn't excite me to do it. So I just don't do it. So I
That's
hope that helps
awesome.
answer your question.
It totally, yeah, I love your perspective. Obviously, you're an expert, and you know, it's funny. I didn't get into real estate. I got into it for money, for investment, for retirement, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But what I didn't anticipate was the positive impact on people, both contractors and tenants. You know, you just mentioned some of the housing you built. Like on 2 separate properties, after the tenants signed the lease, they gave me a hug, like 2 different times. You know, they were so excited they could tell I was a good landlord. This was a good property. They were excited to be in it. And I'm like, not enough people talk about like the positive impact
Yeah.
you can have. You
They
know?
really don't. And that was one of my biggest fears when I left healthcare. I actually went through this year where I just felt lost and super depressed. And after I left my job, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to like help people. Like I'm literally in situations every day where like your heart stops, I'm bringing you back to life. You stop breathing, I'm bringing you back to life. I'm like, how do you like compare to that? Like working in real estate, ill. I'm like a business owner making money, like ill. But then once you're in it, it's true. Like you're changing people's lives by providing housing for them. And now I want to do like senior affordable housing or redevelopment or something exciting and different that I haven't done before. But you don't even have to do stuff like that. Just like providing housing for someone. Like there's a huge lack of housing and there's a huge lack of landlords who provide clean, affordable housing that treat their tenants like people and human beings and are like nice to them. So just doing that for people, they're like, oh my gosh, like you're the best landlord ever because you're kind to them. Yeah. And people need that. Yeah.
Cool. And then lastly, I'm glad you brought up the private lending. That's the only reason, or that's how I've scaled and bought, you know, the properties I have, you know. So I always tell people like if you can build relationships with private lenders and they're kind of friends, colleagues, you know, there's some trust there. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
it's a win-win. So anyway, I'll get off now, but I really appreciate you bringing that up.
No problem. Yeah. I don't, the whole saving up 25% buying a property, then waiting till you save up 20 or 25 more percent. I'm like, man, that take me 500 years to get enough passive income. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
That last in answering Jeff's question about what's the sweet spot, and you giving those examples, somebody who has 10 single family homes, like that's a possibility that somebody could own 10 single family homes, or a possibility of somebody who owns 150 units and they're just going for it. And then also the scenario of somebody doing private money lending and owning 5 doors, but they have a job that they love. Like that's really helpful to see that, like, different possibilities, because I'm a very all or nothing, black or white kind of like thinker, or I have been. It's something I've worked on, and that there's a lot of flexibility in what you just said, like there's a lot of or this or that, and that would be okay too. And
Yeah.
the people I've encountered in business coaching who they seem to be on that, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I'm like going for it. I'm going to build this empire. And I've got these people working in the trades, they're doing it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do any of that kind of thing. But on the other hand, I've had retirement funds that have built up over the years, thankfully. And that's like, I'm like, the idea of it just being numbers on a computer screen invested in mutual funds and everything, like, it just doesn't seem very like fun and active. And it's been great to meet you, and you're like stretching my thinking. But
Awesome.
and then the question I had, April, was, so when you go into the um, self-directed IRA or 401k, can it be a family member at all, like a cousin, a nephew-in-law?
Yeah, it just can't be like linear. So like I can't lend to my son from my self-directed IRA.
Okay.
But my father-in-law lends to me from his self-directed IRA. Yeah,
got
he couldn't lend to my husband.
my wife's nephew is very responsible young man. He's away on deployment. He's in the National Guard. He's a plumber, a trades guy. And he and I have chatted about backing him to do some rental real estate. What I realized was his parents have been in the same jobs forever and don't plan to leave. So any of their, and plus they're just not, they would say like that's way too risky to do private money lending like that. So that seems like a possibility. Is that like, what have you seen? I think that's one of those places where it's just really important to have agreements with people, and it's why
Oh,
we
yeah.
make written agreements. Right.
Yeah, and even like, so for example, my sister does private money lending, but when my sister does like a loan to me or someone I know, like everything's done with attorneys and everything's documented. And I tell people, you need to treat your family members just like they weren't, even like they were someone you didn't know that you're doing business with. And the reason you need to do that, one, is to protect both parties, but two, mostly to protect them. Because if you start cutting corners in the way you're doing things with them, then they're going to go out and find another private money lender. And when that private money lender is not doing things the right way and starts cutting corners, that they're going to think that's okay. And it's not okay, because it's not protecting them. And it's not protecting their lender. So I'm very much, everything's done by an attorney. Even when I do repeat loans, I have an attorney draw up the documents. I don't like edit previous documents. So, because if I ever have to litigate or something, I want it to the attorney to be able to say, yes, I did these documents, and be able to back me in court. And lending, just with your nephew being a plumber, I just want to mention, like, from the self-directed IRA, there's things you can lend on and you cannot lend on. And like a lot of the self-directed IRA websites will tell you that, but you can lend on it a whole bunch of things. So like my brother-in-law is a contractor. So when he was like scaling his business, I did a loan to him for a trailer, like for him to buy a trailer. Obviously, I like it being secured to real estate, because then you have a mortgage. So like if they sell that house, they have to pay you off. Like they can't sell the house without paying you off. So your money is secured with that mortgage. But I trust him and I knew him. So I did a loan to him on a trailer. I bought my mini cows. You can buy cows in your self-directed area. I have a friend in California that might buy me. I'm like, hey, if you buy them and you're going to like breed them or start a business or whatever, call me. I want to do the loan on the mini cows. So I'll buy the mini cows and then you can pay me a return instead of her having to come out of pocket to buy the mini cows. So there's lots of different things you can do with that self-directed IRA. And it comes back to, and just private lending in general, it comes back to risk tolerance. So a lot of people do it on real estate because of the security of it. Yeah. And I typically don't lend on things I don't want to own. So like if someone comes to me with like a boarding house and I'm like, I don't want to own a boarding house, so I'm not going to do the private loan on it because I don't want to own a boarding house in the middle of Harrisburg City, like in a terrible area. Like if you default, I do not want that property at all. So then I won't do the loan. Yeah.
Could somebody use private money to develop like an Airbnb or a short-term rental or vacation rental home, or is it always long-term rentals? Does it matter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. People use it for that all the time. All the time. They do a bunch of different creative things. Like we have an extra lot at our house and we have someone that's like, well, I could buy the tiny home through my self-directed IRA and then be on your property. It could be your Airbnb and you could pay me a return, but you could take the cash flow. So you can do a bunch of different like creative things. Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt or Don? I think Matt's thinking.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Yeah, I really don't have anything either, but my mind is spinning. There's so much opportunity there that is really untapped for us. My husband actually just retired, and we just purchased a small farm that we want to do some things with, basically for nonprofit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely will be reaching out to you to talk a little bit further about some opportunities.
Nice. Yeah, you don't even have to buy your own farm animals. Someone else can buy them for you. So
yeah, that's great to know.
And when you're in real estate, like Wayne, what you were talking about earlier, like when I first got in it and people be like, what's your goal? I'm like, I'm going to own 150 units because that's what all these books say. And that's what you should own. I'm going to own 150 units. I don't know why that's like the number. Everyone wants to own 100 or 150 units. So you're going, you're flipping houses, buying rentals. And next thing you know, you're turning around, you're like, do I really like having tenants or do I like writing checks and making money? So then I'm like, I really like being a private lender and writing checks and making money and not having tenants, or investing in cows. And then my cows are way better tenants than some of my tenants. So I think I'd rather just have a fine balance. If I have this many of rental units, plus I do private lending, plus I invest in my cows, like you kind of got to do what you love, but there is no magic like number of units for sure, because you can have 150 units and all the financial freedom in the world, but if they're making you miserable, then you're not free at all.
And where are you? I know everybody's different with loan pay down versus, keep it for 30 years. Do you have a preference or a recommendation on any of that?
When I do private lending?
Sorry, long-term, like bank loan. Sorry.
Yeah. So I will typically buy stuff cash, then do a cash out refinance. And we leverage bank financing on most of our properties. So I feel it's important to have a balance. So I usually tell people like have one or two properties paid off that like cash flow amazing for you. Like they're completely paid off, they cash flow amazing. Then leverage a bunch of others, maybe 70 to 75% LTV, and then have a few that are less leveraged. I'm not one of those people that's going to like have a 80% LTV loan on everything and everything's completely maxed out and the highest mortgage possible. And as soon as I pay it down, I get another high mortgage on it. I'm not that that's too risky for me. Yes, I think that comes back to like risk tolerance as well. But I like to be well balanced because even though I leverage bank financing, I don't like banks because they're kind of finicky, and whatever happens in the market cycle, they can get real finicky. So you never know what's going to happen. So I kind of like to have a well balanced portfolio.
That's good.
Yeah.
And do you have any thoughts or whatever on the whole midterm rental market? I have two of them, and they're great, but it seems to be kind of getting not oversaturated, but in my area, Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah. So I can only speak from a really good friend of mine. The last time we did a mastermind, he spoke at it, and he owns a bunch of Airbnb short-term and midterm. He loves his midterm rentals. He doesn't think midterm rentals are going anywhere. And this guy's super honest and straightforward. He's been doing it for years and he wouldn't bullshit. But when it comes to Airbnb short term, he's like, I'm not buying anything this year or next year. He goes, that market just needs to like settle down and even out and see where things shake out. So for his risk tolerance, he's like, the short-term rental space is too risky for me right now. But midterm, he loves midterm. In fact, he buys small motels and that's what he does with them.
Nice.
He turns them into midterm.
Cool.
That-
Okay.
That's actually something that we do as well. So we have a bunch of short-term Airbnbs, and because of the laws, state laws, they're changing consistently. It's just not a comfortable feeling knowing that the city can change a rule overnight. So we kind of transitioned into the short, long-term stay. So anything over 28 days, so we don't have to consider it short-term. We began working with a lot of insurance companies for those displaced from some kind of disaster from their home.
Awesome.
Realtors that need their clients a place while their home's being built. And I love those. Those things are, the profitabilities are on the same, and I do not have to deal with the nonsense of the short term anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
April, we're getting like we have about 8 minutes left. Would you talk a little bit about your mastermind that I think you're going to do again? You're going to do another event.
Yeah, we'll probably do one in the spring. So we try and just have a mastermind like twice a year. We open it to we used to just do it for our students, and now we open it to the public, where we have speakers come in and talk about different things. So the last one we did a private money lending panel. So I basically brought in a whole bunch of private money lenders that I've worked with and that do private lending, and just did a big like Q&A session. We had a guy come talk about Airbnb, and then a guy come that owns like a whole bunch of storage and car washes and stuff like that. And I think next year we're going to do like another private money panel, just because that's huge. People love to learn about that and have tons of questions about it. And I think like one on mobile home parks, probably. I have a friend that buys mobile home parks. I bought my first mobile home park. It's been a nightmare, to be honest. Like, I hate it, but we're working through it. And he loves mobile home parks. So we have like two very like different views on it, which I think is awesome. Like, everyone finds like their niche that they love. So we're probably going to bring him in to talk about that. I'm not quite sure what other topics yet, but it's usually like a 2-day event. It's like 1.5 days teaching, and then a half day where we go like on a bus tour and we look at properties and we break down the numbers of like, this is how we found the property, this is how we bought it, like where the money came from, who it came from, what their terms were. And then this is like the renovation and what that costs. And then here's the profit we're making on the back end, or the cash out refi we're doing to turn it into a rental. So we try to do like some on-site live stuff as well. If you're local, so I live like outside Reading, like in Moton. So I'm right between Berks County and Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. I have a group on Facebook called Lazy Girl REI, and we post in there. Sometimes we do like on-site rehab meetings. So like I'll hold meetings at the house that like one of my borrowers is flipping, or a house that we're flipping. And we do the same thing. Like, we just invite people like, hey, 25, we can fit 25 people, come out to the house, see how we run the numbers, how we found the deal. We talk about everything from A to Z. So, and if you're from out of the area, feel free to join the group anyway, because there's people from all over. Like, we partner with people all over the United States. So we do deals in like Florida and North Carolina and all the way out to New Mexico, and we're kind of all over. So yeah.
Anybody have any other, Melissa, do you have any of your like deep questions today?
Yeah, I'm actually signing up to your lazy girl, answering your question, but where the hell do you find the time?
The time?
Yeah. You're like making me, like, I hear you and I want to be like you, but I'm like, what is she eating, drinking? Is she a superhero? What is happening?
I don't know. That's a great question. I get
And I
that
know you
question.
get that all the time. I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. And you know what? I honestly am like in a different phase of my life right now. I feel like there's different seasons in life, and I'm not someone that believes in balance. Like, even when I was traveling in my RV, I didn't have balance. And when I'm in my day-to-day, I don't believe in balance. I just feel like there's different seasons in life. And in some seasons, you're all in on your business. You're just like scaling and growing. It's amazing. And some seasons you need to be hyper focused on family. And some seasons you're hyper focused on your health and fitness. And in every season, there's sacrifice to stay hyper focused on whatever you're hyper focused on. So you have to decide in that season, what am I willing to sacrifice? So like right now, I've done a whole bunch of just like genetic testing and medical stuff, and I'm super focused on my health and fitness. And honestly, the first 3 hours of my day is committed to my health and fitness. And if you would have told me to commit 3 hours of my day to health and fitness back when I was starting my business, or back when my son was 3 and I was working full time and going to college and all this stuff, I would have wanted to throat punch you, because that was not the season of life I was in. So now I'm in the season of life where like, I don't have to work as hard, because I went through that season where I worked nonstop and was building. And now it's not that I don't believe in working hard, but I'm way more protective of my time, and like my health has to come first right now. So I don't feel like I'm working as hard now as I was, but I have had to work extremely hard to get where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you. I get that.
Yeah.
How many team members do you have right now? I know you have people that you're like loosely working with in real
Yeah.
estate, but then you do have some team
So I have a
members too.
full-time assistant who I call her an assistant, but honestly, like if I die, I tell everyone in my family, like, go to Ashley, she can run all my businesses. So she's like that kind of assistant. She does a ton of stuff for me in all my businesses. So, and then I have 2 partners that I coach with. I have an acquisitions manager and operations manager in my one business, a lead manager, and then I obviously have like my bookkeeper. Yeah, I think that's it. I
And then
would
you
like,
figured
I
out,
would,
go ahead.
I would like die without my assistant. There was a point in life where I was just so miserable. I'm quitting all my businesses. My life is horrific. And my husband was like, with everything you do, you need someone working next to you full time. And I'm like, I can do it, blah, blah, until you're like ready to have a nervous breakdown. Then I'm like, I can't afford that. How am I going to afford to pay somebody? And then when you find a way to afford to pay that somebody, you realize like how life-changing it is for you, because then you can focus so much more on the money-making tasks that are really important and less on like the crap over here. So that was like really life-changing, learning how to hire an assistant and learning how to bring on a business partner to take some of the weight off. Yeah, I would die without my business partner. If my business partner was like, I don't want to work in this business anymore, my life's changing, I'm changing paths, I'd be like, okay, let's close it. Like, I'm not even kidding, I wouldn't keep it open. That's my wholesale and flip company. Like, I'd close it in a second if it weren't for her, because I don't want to run something like that. She runs that whole thing. Yeah.
Well, it's been great spending time with you, and thanks for sharing your story and being vulnerable about some of the emotions and thoughts that you have. Appreciate that, and certainly you've stimulated a lot of thinking, April.
Yeah,
Really
and feel
appreciate you.
free to reach out. I thank you guys for coming, and if you have any questions or if I can help you with anything, you have all my contact info. Please feel free to send it out. I'm happy to help.
I'll do that. I'll share it all. All right, everybody, have a
Thank
great
you,
rest of your day.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good day.
Thank you, April.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks for coming.